She did not scream. This was the thing Lady Ashton had not anticipated. She had planned for screaming, had arranged the timing specifically around the household's deepest sleep, had selected a physician who understood that discretion was part of what he had been paid for, had considered the distance between Cecelia's room and the nearest occupied bedroom, and concluded it was sufficient. She had planned for screaming, and she had prepared for screaming, and Cecelia did not scream. She made one sound, a single involuntary sound, at the precise moment of the procedure. The sound a body makes when the mind has not yet been consulted. And then she pressed her lips together, and she looked at the ceiling, and she was silent. Completely. With the particular absolute silence of a woman who has decided in the space of a single second that whatever Lady Ashton wants from this moment, she is not going to receive it from her. Lady Ashton looked at her from the doorway. Something moved in her expression, not admiration, something colder and more functional, the recognition that the instrument she had selected was more durable than she had estimated. She filed this away. Then she looked at the physician. He nodded. She crossed the room and picked up the small wrapped package from the tray beside the lamp and carried it to her writing desk where a letter was already waiting. The letterforms practiced for 6 weeks, as close to Cecelia's hand as 6 years of proximity could produce. Almost as close. On the desk beside the letter, an envelope addressed to the Duke of Ravenswood. Inside the envelope tomorrow morning, the package and the letter. Inside the letter, a carriage accident. Unsurvivable injuries. A goodbye, written in a dead woman's hand by the woman who had decided she needed to be dead. Cecelia was not dead. But she understood, lying on the narrow bed with her left hand wrapped and her eyes fixed on the ceiling, that she was about to become something that functioned identically to dead. A person removed so completely from her own life that no one would know to look for her, because everyone who might look would already be grieving. She turned her head. Through the window, the dark road below, the November night, the particular silence of a household asleep around a crime it did not know was happening. And on that road, a dark horse slowing. A carriage coming to a stop for a reason its passenger could not have named. Arthur Carew, Duke of Ravenswood, returning from an evening engagement, looking up at a lit window in a house he had visited twice, feeling the particular instinct of someone whose body has registered something their mind has not yet processed. He looked at the window for a long moment. Then his driver urged the horses forward, and the carriage moved on, and the November dark closed behind it. He did not know what he had almost seen. He would spend 3 years finding out. If the first 60 seconds of this story did something to your chest that you cannot name, stay. Because what this woman does in the silence that follows, and what this man does with a letter form he reads 300 times in 3 years, is not simply a story about what was taken. It is a story about what cannot be taken. Not from her, not from him. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Hit the like button. Drop a comment telling us where in the world you are watching from. Every single one of those actions reaches back to us more than you know. Now, back to Cecelia. Because the package is already sealed, the letter is already written, and somewhere in this house a woman who has just committed the most precise crime of her adult life is smoothing her skirts and going back to bed. Cecelia's father had been a man of genuine warmth and genuine trust, constitutionally unable to imagine the kind of calculation Lady Ashton was capable of, because he was simply not built for it. He had died when Cecelia was 19. 5 days. The physician had been honest from the 3rd. Cecelia had sat with him through the last night and talked about the garden, about the letter from her cousin in Edinburgh, about the quality of light through the east windows that he had always said was the finest in the house. She did not know whether he heard her. She talked anyway because the alternative was silence, and silence in that room was insufferable. The will had left everything to Cecelia contingent on her good standing and continued residence until 25. Lady Ashton had read the provision and identified its mechanism before she left the solicitor's office. 6 years. That was the gap. She had managed the 6 years with the smooth precision she applied to everything. The household, the accounts, the social narrative. the careful positioning of herself as the appropriate manager of Cecilia's welfare until the letter arrived from the Duke of Ravenswood. Arthur Carew had been introduced to Cecelia at a county dinner in the spring of her 22nd year. 30 years old. Precise. The particular kind of quiet that is genuine self-containment rather than shyness. He had found a reason to speak to her before the evening ended. He had written twice careful, intelligent letters that asked genuine questions and waited for genuine answers. She had written back. The letters had produced between them a quality of ease she had not previously associated with correspondence. The particular ease of two people who are both paying full attention and have both noticed that the other is doing the same. Lady Ashton had read both letters before Cecelia received them. She had managed the household correspondence for 3 years with the smooth efficiency of indispensability. She had read Arthur's third letter, in which he expressed his intention to speak to Cecelia formally, and she had put it in the fire. Then she had begun her calculation. 6 weeks of working through available options and eliminating each one until she arrived at the cleanest available solution. Not a fake death too uncertain, too dependent on other people's cooperation. Something verifiable. Something she could send. Something physical and specific and undeniable that arrived in an envelope and required no further investigation because the proof was in the envelope itself. A finger. The little finger of the left hand. Small enough to be survivable. Specific enough to be identifiable. Personal enough to be devastating. She had written the death note in the 3 weeks before the physician's visit, practiced the letter forms daily, studied Cecilia's actual correspondence, with the focused attention of a forger who understands that the difference between adequate and perfect is the difference between a plan that holds and a plan that does not. She had come very close to perfect. She had not known about the crossbar of the letter E. The convent of St. Marguerite was 3 days' travel from the county Cecelia had been born in. Grey stone, high walls, the self-contained quality of a place that has been doing the same thing for 200 years and intends to continue. The Mother Superior Sister Philippa, the most practically intelligent person Cecelia had encountered since her father had received the private placement with the composed acceptance of a woman who asks the questions that matter and leaves the rest. Cecelia had arrived as Sister Agnes. She had sat on the narrow bed in her cell and looked at the stone wall and made herself a promise. She was not going to become the place she was in. The first months were brutal in the particular way of being in a place entirely wrong for the life you were living. Not the work physical, specific, done with the systematic attention of someone who has decided that competence is the only available form of dignity. Not the cold, though the cold was considerable. It was the silence. Lady Ashton's households were never silent. They were full of the managed noise of a woman who understands that control requires constant maintenance. The convent's silence was entirely different, not the absence of noise, but the presence of something else. A quality of space in which things became visible that noise had been covering. She resisted it for 4 months. Then she stopped resisting, and in the silence she found, with the particular surprise of someone discovering something in a place they never thought to look, a clarity she had not previously had access to. Not peace. Not acceptance. The ability to see the shape of things without social performance obscuring them. By the end of the 2nd year, she was more entirely herself than she had ever been. Harder. More precise. Less willing to perform anything for anyone. She tended the convent garden with the absorbed attention of someone who has found that rosebushes are honest in a way most other things are not. There was no social arithmetic in a rosebush. They grew or they did not. She was at the rosebushes on a Thursday morning in October when the garden gate opened. She did not turn immediately. She had learned in 3 years to wait for information rather than reach for it. She heard footsteps, not a sister's, the weight and pace of a man. She heard him stop 10 feet behind her. Then he said her name. Not Sister Agnes. Cecelia. She set down the trowel. She stood. She turned. He was standing on the garden path, in a dark travelling coat, hat in his hand, grey eyes fixed on her face, with the expression of a man who has spent 3 years investigating a letterform and has just arrived at the end of the investigation. Older, the particular weight of grief carried long enough to become structural. The same grey eyes, the same quality of complete and unhurried attention she had recognized in 2 letters and had not forgotten. She held up her left hand, the 4 fingers and the absence, not as a question, as a statement. The most specific and unarguable introduction available. "You recognized it," she said. "The letterform," he said. "The letter E in the 3rd line. Your actual letters have a specific upward angle in the crossbar. The death note does not." She looked at him. "You kept the letters, both of them. How long have you known?" "Suspected for a year," he said. "Known for 6 weeks. And before you suspected." He was very still. "I believed the note completely," he said. "For a year." Then something began to sit wrongly in the reading. I could not identify what it was for another year. Then I found the letterform. She looked at his face, the 3 years of it. "You mourned," she said. "Yes." The garden was very still. October light thin and pale across the dormant rose bushes. High stone walls holding the space with their customary indifference. "I need to tell you something," she said, "about what I found here. In 3 years, I am not the same person who wrote those letters." "I know," he said. "You cannot know. You have been here 10 minutes. I have been reading for 3 years," he said. "I know the quality of your attention. 3 years of silence does not diminish that quality. It develops it." He paused. "Built things go with you." She looked at him for a long moment. Something moved in her face that had not moved in 3 years. Not warmth performed, the real version, arriving without announcement in the way of things that are genuine. "Come," she said. "I will tell Sister Philippa we need the parlor." They sat in the convent parlor for 4 hours. She told him everything, the lamp turned low, the physician, the package on the tray, Lady Ashton in the doorway smoothing her skirts, the 3 days' travel, the false name, Sister Philippa receiving her with the composed practicality of a woman who asks the questions that matter, the first months, the silence, what she had found in it. She told the last part most carefully. She needed him to understand before anything else that she was taking the clarity with her and was not willing to leave it at the gate, that she was not returning to who she was, that she was going back as the person 3 years of honest silence had produced, and the county was going to receive that person, or it was not, and either way, the clarity was hers, and it was staying. He listened to all of it, without interrupting. When she finished, he said simply, "What did you find?" "Clarity," she said. "The ability to see the shape of things without noise obscuring them." He nodded once, the small, precise nod of a man who has received an answer that confirms something he already suspected. "I need 3 weeks," he said, "for the case. Will you use it?" she said. She held up her left hand, the finger, as evidence. He looked at it. "The physician's statement will be sufficient. Mr. Fitch's report, the county official, the financial records." A pause. "But if it is required, use everything," she said. Arthur spent 3 weeks with the systematic thoroughness of a man executing the only opportunity he will have and intending to execute it without error. The physician had retired to the south coast. His conscience had been deteriorating since the procedure. He was a man who had told himself sufficient times that the money made it manageable and had found the telling becoming less effective. He provided a written statement in exchange for qualified immunity, drawn narrowly enough to protect only the specific matter at hand. Mr. Fitch, a retired Scotland Yard document specialist, spent 3 days with the death note and Cecilia's 2 letters and produced a report of 19 pages. The letterform discrepancy occupied 4 pages. 7 additional points of difference occupied the rest. Arthur had not expected 7. He read the report twice and found it the most satisfying 19 pages he had encountered in 3 years. The county official flexible integrity, rapid calculation upon seeing the assembled evidence, cooperative statement in exchange for narrow immunity. The financial records, the convent payment, matched to Lady Ashton's accounts to the penny under the category medical expenses, which was accurate in a sense she had not intended to be auditable. Whitmore's analysis documented 5 years of managed withdrawals alongside it. The case was not thin. Lady Ashton had been thorough. Arthur had been more thorough. He returned to the convent on a Thursday evening, exactly 3 weeks after the parlor conversation. Cecelia was at the rose bushes. She heard the gate. She set down the trowel. She turned before he reached her. This time she had decided she was done waiting for things to announce themselves when she already knew what they were. 7 additional discrepancies, he said. Mr. Fitch is thorough. Considerably. She pulled off her gardening gloves. She held out her left hand. He took it, the left hand. Deliberately, completely, not avoiding the absence but holding it the way you hold something whose history you know and intend to be accountable to. Are you ready? He said. She looked at the garden one last time, the rose bushes, the high stone walls, the space where the morning bell rang every day and had given her, over 3 years, something she had not brought in with her. She thought about Sister Philippa. You were never meant to stay, but you were meant to come. Built things go with you. Yes, she said. The county assembly met on a Friday evening in November. Lady Ashton arrived in deep burgundy silk, with the composed authority of a woman whose position has been unchallenged for 3 years. She was speaking to the county solicitor when the door opened, and the room adjusted itself, the particular shift in collective attention that arrives when something enters that changes the nature of the occasion. She turned. Cecelia was standing in the doorway. Dark hair pinned simply. Dark blue dress that was hers and had always been hers. Left hand at her side, the missing finger present in its absence. The most specific and unarguable thing in the room. Lady Ashton's composure held for 5 seconds. Cecelia counted them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then something happened in Lady Ashton's face that the county assembly would not forget, not collapse. She was not constituted for collapse, but a fracture, so complete and so visible that the entire room saw the thing underneath the composure for the first time and understood simultaneously what it had been covering. Arthur placed each document on the table as he presented it. The physician's statement, Mr. Fitch's 19 pages, the county official's account, the financial records matched to the penny, 12 minutes. Unhurried, complete. The delivery of a man who has built something that will hold weight and is watching it hold in real time. When he finished, he walked to the doorway. He offered his arm. Cecelia looked at it. The arm of a man who had kept 2 letters and read them until he found the crossbar of a letter E, who had come through a convent gate with his hat in his hand, who had taken her left hand outside the rose bushes and held the absence as though it were simply part of the hand he intended to hold for the remainder of the available time. She took it. He walked her into the room not as a return, as a continuation. She had never left in any sense that mattered. She was simply here now in the correct form on the correct side of the door. Lady Ashton stood. She walked to the exit, with her spine straight and her burgundy silk and her composure held by nothing at all except the muscle memory of a woman who has been performing it for so long. The performance continues after the performer has ceased to believe in it. She did not look back. The proceedings took 14 months and concluded in a manner that satisfied Whitmore enormously. The estate was restored in full with 5 years of compound interest. The physician's qualified immunity did not protect him from the medical licensing board. The county officials did not protect him from the proceedings that followed. Arthur proposed on a Tuesday afternoon in the Ravenswood Library, the same library where he had sat for 3 years, with 2 letters and a growing wrongness in the reading. He said he had formed a conclusion from the available evidence, and that the conclusion was that he would like to spend the remainder of the available time in her company if she was willing. Yes, she said. Though I want it noted that your proposal is essentially a legal argument. A well-evidenced position, he said. It is, she said. That is why I said yes. They were married in February. Arthur held her left hand during the vows. The left hand, the 4 fingers, and the absence, the hand Lady Ashton had used as a prop, and that had become through 3 years of rose bushes and one man's refusal to accept an almost indistinguishable letterform, the evidence that undid everything. He held it completely, not avoiding the absence, holding it, the way he had been holding it in a different sense for 3 years. Rose bushes were planted in the Ravenswood garden in the spring, the same variety as the convent's. She tended them with the same honest attention. They grew with the same honest indifference to how they had come to be here. Sister Felipa's letter arrived the morning of the wedding. 4 sentences. The last one: "The rose bushes will be here when you want them." Cecelia folded it and put it in her dress pocket and carried it into the chapel. Some things you carry with you. The clarity, the morning bell, the particular self that 3 years of honest silence produced. Bell things go with you. She had found this true. She intended to keep finding it true for the rest of the available time. What Lady Ashton had done was precise and cold and almost sufficient. Almost because she had not accounted for a man who read letters until he found the truth in them. Almost because the instrument she chose as proof became the proof that undid her. Almost because Cecelia had gone into the convent looking for nothing and found the self that Lady Ashton's calculation had never managed to reach. The self that built things. The self that took them with her when she left. Thank you for staying to the very end. If Cecilia's story moved something in you, if the image of a man holding a left hand completely stayed with you, then do one thing right now. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Leave a comment telling us where in the world you are watching from. Every single one of you matters to this library. Until next time, the doors are always open.